Yes, my friends, today's video is all about how did Dion, Begg, and I get started in real estate, why real estate, and most important, what opportunities we're seeing coming up in the next several months. So why don't we just kind of jump into the studio and get started here? What? There he is, my friend. Yes, live in person. Let's do this. Here we are, my friends, in the outdoor studio with my man, Dion Begg. Dion, what's going on?
Great to be here in person, Gary. It's always, on the other side of the screen, so happy to see that we're actually in the same room. Well,
That's right.
Outdoor room. Beautiful outdoor space you have here.
Thank you. Thank you. This is good. So today's video, we're going to talk about everything about us. How good is that? Good for us. I don't know about you. Now, here's the thing, and we always see people and we wonder how on earth did they get there? How on earth did they get to do what they're doing? And we thought we'd kind of talk about our backstories a little bit on, why real estate, why investing, why do we love helping people achieve some of the same goals and more goals than we did. And Dion, you have a unique story, and my story is something too.
Sure.
And we'll go with that. How's that sound?
Yeah, for sure. We're both in our 40s now, and I remember when I was in my 20s trying to figure out how did people achieve those goals in real estate or in their real estate career or mortgage brokering career. So excited to sort of talk about that and share that with everybody today.
Yeah. Okay, so I knew you probably have questions for me. I got my first question for you is, how old were you when you bought your first house?
Right. So I was actually 21 years old when I bought my first property. And so the story there was I was living and working in Japan. We spoke about this before. And my brother-in-law worked in the world of construction and renovation. And he'd won a contract from he was in Australia.
Yeah.
I was in Japan. I'm Australian. Oh, yeah, I should mention this.
I love the shirt.
Canadian in Australia.
We'll zoom in on the shirt.
All right. But he called me up and he said, Dion, these properties, you've got to get in right now. I'd been dipping my toe into the world of investment, reading and researching in investment, and he was sort of somebody in my world I trusted. So I said, okay, let's do it. And I bought that first property back then it was a $60,000 property in a place about 45 minutes outside of my main city where I lived, which was Brisbane. And it ticked all the boxes in terms of cash flow. It was renting for $400 a month, and we paid $60,000 for that property. And so that was 20-something years ago.
Yeah.
I went back to Australia this past winter, Christmas time, and that property is now valued at $450,000. So first property, still own it back in Australia.
Yeah.
And it's almost a sentimental thing now. I don't think I'll ever sell it.
Yeah. That's a classic 10X right there.
For sure. And so for you, what age were you?
For you, yeah, my wife and I bought our first home. I think we were 26 years old, and we were renting a nice little apartment, as you do when you first kind of get married, right? Getting your feet and everything settled. Then we thought, hey, let's just go see. And I can't say we were in the market to buy, but we ended up looking at a brand new build.
Right.
Fell in love with it.
You're a mortgage broker's worst nightmare.
I know.
You're the guy who buys the house first and then tries to figure out the finance.
Well, here's the
first
funny
property
thing.
off
Yeah. Here's the funny thing. So Michelle goes in and looks at the model home, and I'm sitting in the car, and then she comes out with that big smile on her face. She's like, "You got to go check it out."
Right.
And right then and there, I knew I had just bought a house. We had just bought a house,
Yeah.
and it's funny. So how we bought that one, and this is like the things you do, and you realize you have some knowledge, and maybe a little ahead of yourself.
Sure.
So, of course, this is, 20 some odd years ago, right? And financing worlds have changed since then. We bought that literally with zero money down.
Right. Okay.
Like of our own hard-earned cash. We borrowed RSP funds.
Right.
We used a little of our line of credit, unsecured line of credit to close, like some closing costs. And of course, and you don't think at the time that there was a cashback mortgage of like 3% or something, like a TD.
Yeah.
And you don't, okay, that sounds great. You don't understand that that's additional interest that you're paying and everything else.
Of course, you just want to get your foot literally in the door, right?
But that's how we got in. And it was like $170,000 or something like that.
And where was that?
In a town called Aurora, north of Toronto. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So if I was to guess, I know the prices in Aurora today. What do you think the house is worth today? I mean, you've sold it since, right?
We've sold it since. That little 3-story townhouse has got to be about 1.1 or something, 1.2. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Nice.
Well, that's So, okay. And then what about, were you a realtor at that time?
No, not even. Now, of course, a lot of the people that have been following us know I grew up in a family that values real estate, so I've always been around real estate.
Hmm.
No, we bought that home and didn't get into real estate investing till probably 10, 12 years after that
After that.
time. Yeah.
Okay.
And we started buying, well, let me back up a little bit. My father 13, 14 years ago said, "Hey, I'm gonna go out and buy some more investment properties this year."
Right.
And I said, "We're in."
Okay. Okay.
I didn't know what that meant, but
Right.
we're in. Fast forward now led to like conversations like this and
Yep.
being in the industry, so we can fill in all those gaps. But it's kind of funny how that one
Yep.
remark or
Right.
one short conversation changes
So
your,
it sounds like both of us were somewhat led into real estate by family, people that we
yeah,
trusted. Right?
yeah, exactly.
And I think that's a big thing. Like a lot of people understand that real estate, there's a lot of potential for
Yeah,
upside, future wealth in real estate, but who do you trust and to show you, those steps to get in?
yeah, yeah,
And it's
yeah.
much easier when I guess it's a trusted family member or friend, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So here's what I want to know. We've bought, we've transacted on probably hundreds of
Oh
property,
yeah, yes.
hundreds and hundreds of properties. Is there something that stands out? Like, wow, that was weird, that was quirky, that was kind of nasty, or that was really funny?
I mean, if I should start a book, I start writing a book. But I'll tell you one funny thing. So oftentimes we help people who have gone through separation or divorce, and
So far, I'm not seeing the humor yet, but
well, it's
okay.
not funny at this point.
Yeah,
But
okay.
so this guy, he'd partnered up, found a new partner. They
Yeah.
were living a happy life together, and he explained to me that yeah, he was previously married. And I said, okay, well, just let me know about what child support payments you might have, because that impacts your mortgage qualifying. So he told me, whatever that payment was, so I could plug it into my calculation, submit it to the lender, and everything on my side looked good. And the lender said, Dion, there's some other information on our side here that about this child support. I said, oh, I told you about the child support. And they said, oh, no, no, there's another one. So I went back to the client. I said, how many families do you have?
Oh,
And so he'd actually been married twice before, and each of those families had a allocated payment that I
excellent.
had to sort of factor in. So I learned from that.
Yeah.
When I say, have you previously been married, I now have to ask the question, how many times have you been previously married, so that I make sure I get my number correct,
Excellent.
right? Um,
Excellent.
what
Yeah.
about you? I mean, have you been? I guess from your side, the real estate itself. So I get a lot of financial stories.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
have
yeah.
any real estate stories, like actual the property itself?
I mean, you've walked into all sorts of stuff, right? On
Sure.
showings and let your imagination go. Yeah, we've seen it. It's all been there. I think one of the first properties we bought as an investment property, of course, this is 13, 14 years ago. Um, I think it was just one of those things that you hear about, but you don't see it.
Mm.
And it was something as simple as just like marijuana plants growing in the back, all
Right,
that
right.
kind of stuff. It was not in the house, fortunately. Funny
Sure.
enough, that house that we ended up purchasing was our first power of sale home that we purchased.
Okay.
So, and it's funny, you always think to yourself, or you're coached, or you're taught, or you're told, power sale properties don't negotiate, you can't do this. We actually had some decent negotiation opportunities out of that
Is that right?
property.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it was interesting. And funny enough, the realtor at the time wrote a beautiful letter
Right.
to the lender,
Mm-hmm.
or really to the lawyer,
To the okay.
right? Explaining that this was a great young family, Michelle and I, with
Right.
little kids looking to buy a home, and just kind of left out some of the other details,
Sure.
but
Sure.
left enough
Yeah.
details.
Yeah.
And it got us the house. It was
Okay.
pretty funny. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, power of sale properties just sort of have this idea that there's a lot more to process through, a lot more red tape. Did you find that?
Yeah, definitely nowadays
Yeah.
obviously there is, right? Because and funny enough, and this is a totally different video that Dion and I perhaps should
Sure.
do, but if you're familiar or somewhat familiar with the purchase and sale agreement, get yourself unfamiliar with it. Throw it out the window. Throw it in a pool. Because when you're dealing with power sale properties, it's basically a one big X, and they have their own terms and conditions, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't warranty anything or anything like that. So you've got to be prepared, and you have to have a willing lawyer to understand that. Hey,
And a lender too, because that's the other part. yeah.
And
It's not straightforward
yeah,
on the
yeah,
lending side.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, here's my question. Um, let's go back years ago,
Sure.
like 10 plus years ago. How easy was it to get a mortgage?
So, maybe a little bit more than 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Let's go
okay.
15 years ago,
15,
right?
okay.
15 years ago, you could buy a property with 0% or 5%
Yeah,
down,
yeah.
right? Investment properties included in that bundle, right? So today, as we speak to you, and for many years now, for probably 10 plus years, 20% down is the requirement for a rental property. But back in the day, CMHC was actually facilitating investor purchases with as little as 5% down, right?
Yeah.
And I think I'm trying to remember now that I feel like the CMHC premium, which was normally say 3% on an investment purchase, was 6%, something like that.
Right. I
And
think
when
you're
I
right.
remember sort of looking at the math on it when I first started and saying, hang on, if they're putting 5% down, but there's a 6% CMHC premium, the client's actually borrowing, in some cases, more than 100% of the value of
Yeah.
the property. And CMHC was actually okay with that at that time, right?
Yeah.
And, even if we go back a little further, um, it was certainly 30-year amortization, but there were some lenders potentially, and again, that may have been even longer amortizations back in the day.
Well, they did 40s,
Right, there you go.
40 year,
Yeah.
but was that just personal residence or could you get
I
investment? I
feel like
can't
it was
remember.
personal residences,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But so it was super, super easy. Well, in terms of down payment,
Yeah.
right? So down payment factor. Also, in recent years, the last 5 years, we've had this stress test, which is whatever mortgage contract rate you're paying. If you're paying 4%, they're actually going to test you at 6%, 2% more. Back then, it was whatever your
Yeah.
rate is your rate.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, even if your variable rate, and variable rates were super low, they would test you at just whatever that variable rate was at that time.
Yeah.
So a lot back then, people were able to borrow a lot more, a lot easier.
A lot easier. Of course, we get it. We get it. The home values were a lot less than what they were today, and
Correct.
so
Yeah.
the exposure to the banks was somewhat controlled, but still at 95 to 100% loan to value,
Yes.
regardless of the valuations. It reminds me of how we bought our first three investment properties. 72 of them were 75% loan to value on the first mortgage.
Right.
The vendor gave us 15% vendor take back.
Okay.
So we were literally walking in with
10%
10% down
Yeah.
on two of them. And then the third property that we bought from that same buyer, the bank gave us 80% loan to value, which meant we were 5% down.
That's insane.
And
Yeah.
of course, many of you know I don't put a lot of my own money in investment properties. We use the JV partners. So the JV partner actually provided all the down payment, closing funds, and so forth. We still own those properties. 13, I think it's going on 14 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Insane. And what I'll say now, and we'll do it another time, is I'd love to do the math on that 10% down and what kind of a return you got over these 13 years on that 10%. It'd be thousands of percent. Right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And in fact, that owner was really, really great to us. I think he held those seconds for about 5 years or 7 years, and then we've actually paid them out ourselves, and we look at those as a return as well.
Right.
And in fact, here's the beauty of when you create a great relationship with the owner, and you do the things that you say you're going to do, you can go back and ask him for more other private money,
Right.
which we did.
Right.
He gave us 125% loan to value on another project we were doing,
Crazy.
which is pretty cool.
And leverage, I mean, we work in the world of debt. I work in the world of debt.
Yeah.
But using debt wisely is one of those things that people kind of misunderstand. It's one of those things that I try in my day-to-day business to help people get educated on.
Yeah.
Because people are forever borrowing for the wrong thing. And when they see, like, oh, you borrowed 125%, but they forget the type of asset that you're investing in.
Yeah.
Whereas the same people might go get 125% loan on a car because they've got negative equity in a vehicle, and they'll roll that in all day, every day. But understanding, I think that was a big key for me early on in life, figuring out that debt was in fact the key to wealth, as long as you could use it properly, right?
Yeah, interesting. Do you have a favorite property that you own or have owned?
That I own. Okay. Well, I guess I mentioned the one in Australia, but separate to that, it's the home that I live in, but it's this. I guess I'll tell you the story that got us there.
Yeah.
So, and this is kind of a funny one. So, So we now live in a lovely home in South Pickering, on the sort of the lakeside of the highway. It's like a half acre. It's a 4,500 square foot home, and we've got a pool and a pond, beautiful view. I drove through that neighborhood. I think it was 2012. We just or 2012, 2013. We were expecting our second child. And we were living in our first Canadian home at the time, which was a 1,000 square foot semi-detached bungalow, right? Which is the standard, I guess, starter home of the 1960s and onwards. And I remember driving through this neighborhood and thinking to myself, wow, who can afford to live here? Like this is a neighborhood where it just seems so far out of reach. For I guess the regular Canadian, or regular Canadian resident, or regular person with regular income. And I said, how would we ever live here? So that was my first experience with that neighborhood. And then when our second child was born, not about a year and a half later, we realized that our little 1,000 square foot bungalow was probably not going to maintain a happy marriage with two children.
Yeah.
And we said, okay, let's go and start looking for a property.
Yeah.
We went to look for some properties that were the next level up, 4-bedroom, double car garage type, standard type homes. And we would have been making a jump from a $400,000 home to a $650,000 home.
Right.
That was the plan at the time. And we looked at a couple, and they were okay, but we knew that none of what we'd seen that day was really our cup of tea. And we were driving home, and as we were driving home, we happened to reconnect with this neighborhood, the one I'd driven down a couple of years ago. I'm like, oh, okay, we'll just drive home this way. And we happened to drive past a house that had a for sale sign on it, and it had open house. I'm like, oh, and it was 2 to 4, and it was like 3:50 p.m. I'm like, oh, let's go and see if we could just take a look. And it was certainly out of our reach. We knew that. We knew that. And it kind of sounds like maybe your display home, model home story with Michelle.
Yeah.
Right. So we go in there, and we walk around for a minute or two, and my wife and I, we lock eyes in the kitchen, and we're like, oh no, this thing's 900,000 plus, like, but we really like it, and how do we make it happen? So we went home that night. And we looked at, and I call this with our clients, I look at the pieces on the chessboard, right? Which is, if that's our goal, right? What have we done in our life to maybe put enough pieces on the chessboard to play the game so we can get that thing, right?
Yeah.
Which, and by the way, this would have been our first purchase, which wouldn't have been done from a very strategic investment perspective. This was just a lifestyle question. And the reality is that we had been accumulating real estate to the point that, okay, this move to this property was financially possible because we had multiple properties that were giving a certain amount of cash flow, had enough equity in them, didn't require the sale of our existing property. We converted the existing property.
Is that right?
into rental.
Excellent.
And we did the math, we refinanced, went into more debt,
Yeah.
right? But we were able to get that home. Wow. So it was, and now we're happy to be able to live in that home and afford that neighborhood that we thought we never could.
Yeah.
But it was, and sorry, I've been rambling here, but let me tell you this part. We needed to take down a wall, and we had our interior designer meet us at the property, and reconfigure stuff. And she's like, yep, okay, good, we can make this happen. So we met at the new property, and then we had to meet up to see the plans at our old property. She opened the door and she came in, and she looked around, and she said, oh my gosh, like you could see it on her face. She's like, you guys live here? you guys live in this tiny little 1,000 square foot bungalow, because she's dealing with people who live in these larger homes. And she said, like, what are you doing? Like you could see, I was trying to explain, and then I sat down and explained to her, we own multiple properties, they all kind of look like this. And it was so foreign to her.
Interesting, yeah.
So foreign that, and she lived in this mega home herself, but she had a mega mortgage.
Right.
And so it was a bit of an eye-opener for the interior designer, that we were willing to forego the direct line that a lot of people want to the dream home.
Yeah.
By doing these smaller things, so that by the time we got into the dream home, it was exactly, financially manageable for us.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. It reminds me of the home that we currently, well, where we're at right now is
Yeah,
our primary residence. That might be my favorite home too, in a
yeah,
sense. We bought it. It was a home that my wife Michelle grew up in, and her parents had always offered it to us.
right.
We were never interested
Yeah,
until one day we were.
sure.
But with our vision for it, right? And it's one of these homes that we can live in for a long time,
Yeah.
right? A long time. It's got enough space for everybody. We've renovated. It's all that kind of thing. Do you like doing renovations for your homes,
You
your
know,
properties?
I will tell you honestly, I am not handy.
Yeah.
Anybody who knows me, my wife will stand on the rooftops and scream, "Yeah, Dion doesn't know which end of end of a hammer is up." But again, like we have our clients trust us because we know a little bit more about mortgages or
Yeah, yeah.
real estate than they do. I trust people in the world of contracting.
Right. Yeah.
And I've been very actually on the home that I live in now.
Yeah.
Our good buddy Ian Zabo
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
was the guy that I turned to and
Yeah.
said, "Buddy, how do I take down this wall?
Nice.
And how do I reconfigure this?" And he's got this background in contracting,
Yeah.
and he really helped me. So trusting people who know stuff around an aspect which you're not really good
Yeah,
at
yeah, yeah.
is super important.
Yeah.
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 But I've been through 4 renovations now,
Yeah.
which is probably a lot more than most people would want to do in their lifetime.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was done with good people on
Good
my
people.
side.
Yeah.
I know that. I mean, I just took a walk around your lovely home, and you've done. It looks like, was it top to bottom? Because kitchen,
Pretty
floor.
much, yeah, top to bottom. Yeah,
Yeah.
renovated or changed and this is the first time we've ever done an addition.
Yeah.
So that was a really neat experience. However, that experience has taught me so much. So now I can talk with clients at a much different level,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because I went through that process of getting permits and submitting permits and even this outdoor structure that we're in today, I had to submit a permit. So I had to fill out all the paperwork and send it
Right.
in. But because I'd already done it,
Yeah.
yeah, just doing it, and boom, 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 sent, followed up, and I actually had to do some of the the floor plan and stuff like that, and so it gave me that experience to do, which was good.
You need a permit to shoot that bird.
Yeah, that crow. If you know how to remove birds, actually, I've learned. Here's a funny story. We're gonna share this on screen. I've learned how to get rid of birds in a safe way. All you need to play on your loudspeakers is predatory bird sounds.
Right. Just Google it on YouTube.
Yeah,
and-
send it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there, if you haven't learned anything, you've learned that today.
Okay,
Yeah,
lovely.
yeah, that's funny. But I went through the process of I really enjoyed doing renovations and getting my hands dirty, lifting up a hammer. I like that. It also, what I learned though, is it took me away from buying and selling real estate. Right?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
because I've flipped homes and flipping a home when you got to renovate an entire home, that's minimum 3 months.
Yeah. And I learned this. I forgot. I learned this the hard way myself because I did renovate one of my very first properties. It took me 3 months,
Yeah.
and I realized my level of skill,
Yeah.
and I realized how long it took, and I realized if I just paid somebody to do it, they'd get it done in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I know this now, and so sometimes you have to go through that to learn the
Yeah.
value of that job.
That's right.
Because it's the same with property management. Do you manage your own properties now? No. Okay.
Well,
But did you?
yeah,
Did you at some
I
point?
have, and I
Yeah.
realize I hate it.
Right. And so again, time and money. So I manage my own property, and a lot of people say, "Oh, Dion, it's for back then I managed my own property. Now I don't, but I had to do it so that when it comes time to pay my property manager, I do it with a smile
Yeah.
because I know how much time, energy, sweat and tears go into that job.
Yeah.
And it's a tax deductible expense as
Sure.
well, right? So
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense. But
Yeah. Focus on your skills.
yes,
Right?
Yeah, lean into your strengths.
Yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely. What I know the type of properties that I've had
Yep.
anywhere from single family homes to duplexes with basement suites to multiplexes. The biggest we have is 5 units. What about yourself?
Yeah, so for the majority, we go for 2+ units
Yeah.
if we're buying. and I have done rent to own on
Yeah.
single family properties, some of which the tenant did buy and we're very happy for.
Yeah.
And some of them it didn't work out because they had a breakdown in their marriage.
Yeah.
And so we ended up owning that, and we still own that property today. It's a single family home. But if we're acquiring more property, we're almost always looking for two or more units, or the ability to create two or more units, and that's simply because of cash flow.
Yeah. And I love looking at a property, especially with now your client, one of my clients, Oliver. He has that vision to see how can we add value.
Yes.
Right. Whether it's a new income stream, or hey, this piece of property that's for sale is already zoned for 2 buildings, or you can easily sever it because it's 2 addresses and things like that. I love looking at stuff like that.
Yeah. The opportunity to create that best and highest use of a property, and now with especially in the city of Toronto, the ability to go to 4 units.
Yeah.
And I was reading recently, it's not just 4 units. It could also be the 4 units plus a laneway suite.
Right.
Yeah. So you can actually get 5 units on some of these buildings, or depending on the land size you have available and setbacks. But I think that that's going to create opportunities for people who can see the opportunity.
Yeah.
You do need some deep pockets if you're doing that in the city of Toronto, though.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so a little bit about our history. And you can dive in and ask us specific questions, but it's a good segue into, we're in the middle of summer here in 2023. Are you starting to see some opportunities show up in the market?
Yeah, so it's an interesting time. So if we go back a little bit, last year, 2022, market was very much on a downward trend because interest rates were on an upward trend.
Yeah.
Then at the start of this year, a couple of months in a row, no interest rate increases. And the market is so sensitive to interest rates that we all saw a significant uptick and return to confidence in the market in March, April, May. June, we have an interest rate announcement, and that 0.25 has been enough. And now we're at the end of July. We can actually see that just in this 4-week time frame, 5-week time frame, that the brakes have really been tapped, and a lot of people have now gone, okay, now we're back out, and it's kind of this pendulum, right?
Yeah.
That it's swinging, and now it's like, okay, we're over here right now. So number one, the government and these interest rate changes really do play a huge factor in the psyche of the Canadian buyer.
Yeah.
Number one. So now, what does that mean for these next sort of 12 months? So I'll tell you anecdotally in my business, when times were getting tough last year, I did have to restructure some financing for some clients.
Yeah.
And I knew that when we were doing some of that this was a short-term solution. I call it a Band-Aid mortgage. It's like, we'll get you a second mortgage for this amount to get you through until you get through the other side, right? In the anticipation and hopes that their circumstance would change or the market would change. And so imagine I just have one mortgage team, and I'm seeing a little bit of this happening right now where people are maturing on these mortgages, and some of them have said to me, Dion, if this keeps on going, we may have to sell.
Is that right? Yeah.
And it's not actually my investor clients, interestingly. So my investor clients are the ones who have equity.
Sure.
It seems to be the people who have just the one home. And don't have much other equity behind them. So it's the investor clients who planted the seeds and have a little bit of cushion that seem to be okay. But I guess it's the regular homeowner, and the ones that come to mind are somebody who got divorced last year, took on the mortgage themselves, and said, okay, let me see if I can get through this next year by myself. So I mean, that may be some extenuating circumstances too, but the hope was that he'd improve, and it's not the case. So I feel like the pain that these BOC changes have intended to happen will really permeate and be seen in the next 6 to 12 months.
Right.
These last 12 months, it was like people were holding on to the bucking bronco. Just see how long we can hold on. But it's like very soon some people might have to give in. And as such, they're moving on, but there may be people who financially in better positions that could take over those properties and maybe buy. Nobody likes to profit from somebody else's pain, but the economics are, look, Bank of Canada wanted this outcome, and so the outcome is being reached.
That's it. Yeah. on the ground, we're seeing just the early stages of some of what you just
Right.
described. Definitely, we're seeing an uptick. Now, take this with a grain of salt, though. An uptick in those power sale properties. So you might see headlines like, "Oh, power sale properties have doubled the listings." Well, we went from like maybe 40 to 80, or we're creeping at 100.
Yeah, that's right. I remember this.
So,
Yeah,
so if you see some of those headlines, just kind of know it's still pretty small, but yet that's also an indicator of what's going on in the market, right? And in a lot of those properties, as we talked about in the past, it's not your A lenders, it's your B lenders or your private equity firms that have been lending out on properties like this. And I know one of my partners and colleagues, he has a pretty significant, careful how I say this, a steady stream of power sale properties coming to market over the next several months.
Right.
So there's some of those opportunities that are coming up, and we are seeing a little bit of, maybe we can't quite afford this, or we see the writing on the wall. We have to renew. We were at 2%, and now we're renewing at close to 6 or something, right?
Yeah, and interestingly, timing wise, 2018, 5 years ago, was when they introduced the stress test.
Yeah.
And so the reality is that some of these people who are coming up for renewal weren't under exposure to the stress test. And now they're jumping from 2%, and they had to qualify at 2%.
Yeah.
Now to 6.
Yeah.
And realizing that, okay, things might be a bit of a shock for them. Right?
Yeah.
There's many renewals coming up this year. More so in the second half of the year than in the first.
Interesting.
And so
well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and when that happens, people are going to have to reassess. I mean, the regular mortgage has jumped by from $2,000 to $3,000 is what we're talking about. It's a 50% increase on what they were paying before. Yeah. In some cases, so there will be some cracks that have to show through the system there.
And it's interesting. We should probably wrap this up in just a few moments, but. Sure. As for entrepreneurs or the individuals that see opportunity in creating income for themselves, going from 2,000 to 3,000 is always a big lump to swallow. Yet maybe they have the know-how or the experience to do so, to increase that income, and it's incredibly tougher if you're on that fixed income.
Oh, yeah.
I get it, right?
Yes.
I get it. And many people are on a fixed income, and that's okay. And fixed income still could be $100,000 a year salary. It's still a fixed income.
That's right.
So maybe this is time for you to think outside the box, use your fixed income, but look at some other opportunities. How can I create, I don't want to say more income, but another income stream?
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's tough when I've got clients in similar situations where they're working that second job, for example. Some of them are exploring the online community in terms of income creation, and one of my more successful investor clients is actually going deep into Shopify and that type of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, there are more opportunities out there to make income than there were, I would say, 5 to 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It does require a certain level of willingness to learn. And I think, be it real estate or anything, right? Every day I wake up and I know that I know less today than I did yesterday because more stuff has been created overnight.
That's right.
And
right.
In fact, in a future video, I'd love to talk to you about AI and how maybe you're using it. And how investors might be able to use it in some way. But I've scraped the tip of the iceberg there, and I think that there are things in my business that could certainly benefit, and for any of your self-employed individuals out there, they could probably benefit from that too.
Absolutely. We are going to wrap this up, but here's the AI comment, and there's a lot of conversation around AI, especially right now if you're following along with like the writers for movies and TV shows and extras and all that kind of stuff. So you might have a little insight. And from a real estate perspective, I know there's realtors that are concerned, well, will AI replace the realtor or replace a lot of the tasks that the realtor does? And I don't think AI will do that, but the realtor or maybe the mortgage broker or the business owner that uses AI, that's what you're going to get replaced by.
Correct.
So it might be daunting to you to understand what AI is, but I think you would be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't.
Yeah, I mean, the simple thing is, in that industry, it'd be like being a realtor who owned a car or a realtor who didn't. I think that's almost, it sounds ridiculous,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But as ridiculous as that is, I think that if you're a realtor without AI, it's almost like you're a realtor without a car.
Yeah.
In the years ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So as the birds start to fly back in, we should
Yeah.
probably wrap this up. This is the Canadian / Australian. I love
Representing
it.
today.
That's
I figured on this beautiful. An Australian loves Canadian summers. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah? Yeah.
They're beautiful.
Yeah, and you don't have to deal with the snake
Oh,
here.
wait a second. I got to show you this though. I came fully kitted in my Australian gear.
Yeah.
I work in the world of money. Adidas made these shoes a couple of years ago, limited edition.
Yeah.
Can you see this?
What? Get out of here. You said you were going to do something
I
with
said
that
I
$20
said
bill.
20. So I figured if I work in the world of money, money talks, money walks, bro.
Money walks.
Okay.
Sometimes towards you and sometimes away from you. I love it. I love it. How do people get a hold of you?
Dion, mortgagesbydion.com.
Excellent. There you have it, my friend. So for Dion and this amazing sort of overcast rainy day, I'm Gary McGowan. We'll see everybody in the next video. Bye for now.
Bye.